Is there anyone on stage, and can I see hands, who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party and pledge to not run an independent campaign against that person? Again, we're looking for you to raise your hand now. Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight.
And that's the way it kicked off last night at the big Fox debate. That sound courtesy of Fox News Channel from the debate last night. And the man who asked that question is now on the line, Bret Baier from the Fox News Channel. Listen, first of all, let me say thank you to you, Bret. I know you probably had a late night last night. We appreciate you getting up to be with us.
You got it. Good morning.
All right. So, listen, I got to ask you this question. We've been having the debate among ourselves and on the radio all morning long. When you asked that question, there was a reaction from the audience. And ultimately, I think we can say that there were some boos. But I'm not sure whether they were booing the question or whether they were booing the answer that they got, because the answer was the only guy who raised his hand was Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't interpret it real time. I think that the audience was not happy in that. Remember, the tickets in the hall were controlled by the Ohio Republican Party. So to hear one of the people on the stage say that he wouldn't rule out not supporting the Republican nominee.
Well, let me play a little bit of that sound. Here's how it went after you asked that question.
Mr. Trump. So, Mr. Trump, to be clear, you're standing on a Republican primary debate.
I fully understand.
So were you surprised that he did that?
I was surprised. I actually thought he was going to kind of make the pledge and kind of move on. But clearly he wants to keep his options open. And I think, that led to a pretty newsy start to what ended up being a pretty fiery debate for 2 hours.
Hey, Bret. I just first want to say
Amanda Carpenter with us this morning. I'm sorry.
Hey, Amanda.
Hey, good morning. I just want to say thank you for putting on a wonderful debate last night and being unafraid to ask the questions that no one else would ask. But going forward, since the questions are a subject of intense debate, what steps are you taking to make sure that the focus remains on the candidates and not the moderators?
Yeah, listen, I mean, going in, I think we had the thought that it wasn't about us. And it should be about the candidates and their answers. I mean, ideally, Amanda, we would love to have more interaction, more ability for the candidates to, press each other on the big issues of the day. But frankly, with 10 candidates, it is logistically really tough. I mean, you are spinning a lot of plates up there, and the thing you don't see is the producer in my ear saying, okay, we have too many questions for X, we need to get a question for Y, this person has this many minutes, we need to balance it out, and we are shifting our question order and what we're asking real time to try to be as fair as we could.
Now, the Donald has come out swinging this morning against you and in particular your co-moderator, Megyn Kelly. Your thoughts?
Listen, I don't think he had the best night. There was not and I've seen Twitter and Facebook and everything else, so, there was not a out to get Donald thought. I think the questions that were asked to him were, they were pointed, but they were substantive. And, that first round of questions was about electability, and we went after each candidate specifically on vulnerabilities that potentially could prevent them from either, one, getting the nomination, or two, winning a general election against Hillary Clinton. And to get to the White House, you're going to have to take a lot of tough questions. If you can't get through us, how are you going to get through the Clinton machine?
Well, listen, I agree with you, and I thought the debate was great. Now, let's set the Donald aside for a moment, because the Donald is different than everybody else. We can all agree on that. The rules are different from him. He plays under different rules. He plays a different kind of political game. The other 9 people on the main stage last night, who did themselves some good in your mind? Who do you think may have slid off the main stage down to the secondary debate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think Marco Rubio had a really good night. Just the sense afterwards, his performance on the stage, I think was was a tight, and he answered the questions. Even a kind of combo question at the end about God and veterans, he kind of handled really pretty expertly. Mm-hmm. I think Mike Huckabee is good in that environment, and I think Ted Cruz may be the Mike Huckabee of this cycle, in that he is just really ready to debate, and he's a guy who shines in that atmosphere.
Hey, Bret, I'm sure you guys spent an incredible amount of time crafting those questions to provoke unexpected responses, because we got a lot of new information out of that debate, which is why it's so valuable. So I'd like to know, what answer surprised you the most, for good or for bad?
Wow, that's a great question. Surprised me the most.
Wow,
he's
pondering.
I thought
he knows him inside out.
I'm trying to think. I mean, it all goes by so fast. I think Mike Huckabee's answer, the fact that he had such a complete answer to my transgender in the military question, surprised me. I mean, he had a full. That's not one that I think that you prepare for, and he seemed to have, so the military is not a social experiment right off the bat. And that surprised me a little bit.
All right, so I'm looking, I've been all morning long, we've been focused on this, taking calls from people about the debate last night. And the general sense that I get is, the big lead story was Donald won't take the pledge. Donald has to answer questions about some things he said about women and that whole exchange with Megyn Kelly. But then the other headline out of this comes from the 5 o'clock earlier event. And it seems across the board, everyone seems to think Carly Fiorina walked away with it.
I agree with that. And I think the consensus in the spin room was overwhelming that she did. And, we tried to incorporate just a little bit of that 5 p.m. into the 9 to 11, and you heard those sound bites. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if Carly Fiorina moves up to the top tier the next time.
Yeah, and then that means that probably somebody did not do well in that 5 o'clock debate.
Yeah.
For my money, it was Governor Perry. What do you think?
Well, he had a tough start. He kind of came back at the end, did a little bit better. I do think that Senator Graham didn't have a great performance outside of the Iraq question. He seemed a little bit lackluster. I think the others, I don't think, raised their game to be able to.
Well, I would say I would agree with you, except with the exception perhaps of Bobby Jindal. I thought when I've been very critical of Bobby Jindal because I don't think he's a very good communicator, but he was very crisp, very sharp, and very animated. A different Bobby Jindal than I've seen before. Clearly, Carly Fiorina won it. But the one other person that I saw in that earlier debate that sort of caught my attention was Bobby Jindal. I thought he handled himself well.
To be fair to them, Brian, it's a little tougher. It's that the hall was not opened up, so they couldn't have an audience in there because it was a security issue. So it was only friends and family in the seats. So it was kind of empty. Number one. Number two, they didn't really interact with each other that much because they were swinging up to the other debate.
Right.
And it's a different environment.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to have to leave it right there. I could talk another 20 minutes, but, we got this thing we got to do called Traffic and Weather. Bret, thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you again. We do appreciate you again getting up early to be with us.